was a term that I recently came across on the internet known as biohacking, and I must say it interested me quite a lot. There were these people who were sort of touting that there were these things that could make them live to like 150 years old. People were saying that with all the scientific developments that are currently going on in the world, medical developments, all that sort of stuff, humans would sort of naturally sort of average be able to live to ages of like 120 to 150. And that absolutely fascinated me when you consider that the majority of people nowadays only really make it to sort of 70 to 80 years old, even though in the past, many people's, while the life expectancy was not really sort of 70, 80 and more like 40 to 50, people still lived to like 100 plus years old in those times. But it was because of the infant mortality rate. Many children were dying when they were like weeks, months, days old even, simply because their immune systems or any other sort of physical defects simply couldn't handle the reality that is Earth or whatever. But people were still living to like 100 years old because they lived a much healthier, natural lifestyle that was free of all the toxins that are in the modern environment. But with the sort of wake-up call that the current generation seems to be experiencing, many people are saying that we could genuinely be living to like the years of 150 to 120 years old if we completely eradicate all the things that are toxic to both us and the environment and just make the world a better place in general, where we can actually live long and fruitful, fulfilling lives. And I was telling some of my friends about this, and they found it quite weird that someone would want to live to like 150, 120, because they assumed that the sort of last 60 years of their life would sort of be living frail. You'd be frail, you'd be weak, but you'd just about be hanging on. But what I realized is that at least like 140 of those potential 150 years would be fruitful years where you are physically active. And even if you sort of aren't someone that's going to live to 150, even if you're currently maybe watching this and you're like 60 to 70 years old or whatever, if you are someone that stays physically active, you're going to have like a active life up until the sort of year where your body just starts to naturally sort of degrade and degenerate and all that sort of nasty stuff. But if you are physically active for the entirety of your life, you will have a long and fruitful life, because you will have more years where you're actually sort of able to live a good life, rather than having like 40 years where you enjoy yourself with instant gratification, bad habits, etc., and another like 30 years where you basically can't walk, you can't even run a mile without sort of being out of breath, all that sort of stuff. You want to be having as long of a life that is fruitful as possible. And thinking about this, I'm only like 16 years old. That is nothing in comparison to 150. Every time I sort of get worried about the fact that I'm not making enough progress in my goals, I just kind of think back to the fact that if I'm in this for the long game, I'm going to be living for as long as I possibly want to. I'm going to be physically active my entire life. Chances are I'm going to live to like at least bare minimum 100 years of age, because people who aren't even sort of that physically active are pretty unhealthy in the stuff that they eat and stuff and do and stuff, etc. They live to like 100 years old. What's stopping me from doing the exact same thing, barring any sort of exceptional circumstances? I have a much higher chance of doing that than someone like they do, for instance. So I don't need to sort of worry so much, put so much pressure and be so anxious. Obviously, I'm still motivated to achieve those goals, but there's no point in beating myself up, ruining my mental health over those goals. I feel like those goals can just sort of come as they come, as I make progress and do compounding activities, good habits over periods of time. They'll come, and they'll come in time, in the time that I want. And I don't need to be put so much pressure on myself, be so harsh on myself, especially with the goals that I set. I don't need to act like I've got no time on the clock and I have to be making 10k a month within the next year, because that's simply not true. I don't need that. I don't have that scarcity mindset. I'm pretty sure I'm like a bit more of a minimalist in my attitudes towards money and stuff. I don't need so much money to buy so much fancy things. I just find it so interesting that as someone who is at such a young age, and you may be too if you're watching this video, we're all, if we're on self-improvement and do plan to sort of continue this, self-improvement has only really been a thing in the last 3 to 2 years. That's when it's really taken off. The majority of people who are on self-improvement, 80%, you've probably heard of the 80-20 rule, 80% of people who are on self-improvement probably started in the last 2 years. That means that as all these people sort of continue to grow and compound, the world will be an entirely different place with these people's progress, just even maybe 5 to 10 years down the line. And their own personal development and personal progress will be absolutely insane and definitely shock a lot of people. And it might give the sort of society in general just a bit of a wake-up call as to what can be achieved by a single human in their whole lifetime. I just find this sort of concept fascinating. I know me, I am personally nowhere near done when it comes to self-improvement. I want to achieve so much more in my life, and I know I have so much time to do it. I can sort of not have to focus on everything at once. I don't have to be really cardiovascularly fit while also having a load of muscle and doing a big bulk and all this sort of stuff. I don't have to have contradicting goals going on at the same time, because I can focus on different areas of my life at different times, because I know that with the good habits that I'm sort of doing, that are sort of baseline good habits, I will live a long and fruitful life that is physically active. I don't eat things like sugary snacks and McDonald's that are going to decrease my lifespan by a lot if I have those, if I did actually have those things like once a week even, because over a compounding amount of time that would decrease my lifespans with the amount of stuff that's just in that just isn't good for your body whatsoever. It's just a really interesting concept when you think about it. I recommend that you sort of think about this, journal on this, think about the sort of longevity of your life, how long you're going to live, what you want to achieve in that life, your potential that you could, what is the most that you could possibly achieve out of life, what is the thing that you want to get out of life the most, and just set your sights on that. And that's your sort of life goal even, and you've got like 120 years to achieve it. So you don't have to sort of take it slow, you don't have to take it easy. You can work hard. It's not necessarily an excuse for you to do bad habits, because that will mean that the sort of time that you have left will inevitably decrease if you decide to enjoy yourself now and then become someone who is in that sort of where their last 30 years they can't even run a mile because they get out of breath easily because they've been smoking all their life and had McDonald's once a week on a Friday because that was their cheat day or whatever. That kind of sort of scenarios and environments are things that you want to avoid, but you can just take it slowly, implement slight edge principles, compounding effects. Just doing a single CrossFit workout every morning will transform your fitness more than sort of going to the gym twice every week. Do the compounding daily habits and you will see results. I'm in this for the long game. I hope you're in this for the long game too, living as long as you possibly want to with good habits, not necessarily just being an idiot, sort of you only live once kind of thing, but just taking it slow, having a nice, easy, relaxing life that is full of happiness and fulfillment, and instead of really pleasure, more sort of a pleasant lifestyle, if you kind of get what I mean by that. And just always considering the sort of I'm nowhere near done, constant learner mindset, something I highly recommend that everyone sort of keeps with them at any given time. It's something that I personally keep with me at any given time. Being a constant learner, always learning and trying new and different things, setting different goals to achieve different things, and all that sort of stuff. I highly recommend taking that mindset on, and I also highly recommend subscribing to get more content like this, as well as join a community of young tribal people who are willing to improve themselves so much more than they already have, and good luck.